Begin by adding masking tape to your paper. You want to line it up evenly, and each piece should overlap the previous one by a small margin. Make sure to stick it down quite firmly and cover the entire sheet. Once you have an image selected, you're going to go ahead and draw a grid on it. This should be a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch grid. So you'll use the ruler, carefully measuring accurately your 1/2 inch intervals, and then also carefully drawing lines between those intervals to create a grid. You should end up with an 11 by 15 grid. So that would be 11 rows and 15 columns. And depending on whether your picture is vertically oriented or horizontally oriented, those numbers are interchangeable. We need to also add a grid to the workpiece. So this has been covered with the masking tape, and as you can see, I am very carefully marking a 1 inch by 1 inch grid. So all along 4 sides, I place the ruler in the corner of the piece, and then I carefully mark every single inch all along 4 sides. Once that's completed, I can maneuver the ruler into place, hold it firmly, not letting it slide, and just strike a line all the way down its length as I line up each pair of marks across the piece. I'll do this in one direction, turn the piece, and then do it in the other direction to complete my grid. This grid should have the same exact number of squares in it as the reference should. So in this case, it's 11 by 15. Once both the workpiece and the reference have a grid drawn on them, it's time to begin transferring the image. Now, as you can see, the reference is quite a bit smaller than the workpiece. As a matter of fact, my plan is to enlarge this by a factor of 2. So on the reference, you have a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch grid, and on the workpiece, you have a 1 inch by 1 inch grid, thus doubling in size. So the picture on the workpiece will be twice as large as it appears on the reference. The grid is meant to help you place your contours and lines in an exact way so that you can get a faithful reproduction of the reference. So you need to take your time, compare one to the other, work one square at a time so as not to get confused. You want to avoid trying to freehand. The grid is there for a reason, and it's there to help you. So make best use of it and use the proper technique. It's important to continually compare the reference to the workpiece, you want to go back and forth. Always keep your reference close by where you're working so that it's only a quick glance away. That way you can continually refer to the reference as you are working on the workpiece. And you can see I very often am counting how many squares over or how many squares up I am so that I don't lose my position. It's easy to get lost if you're not paying attention. So always check before you begin to draw so that you don't end up making part of your drawing 1 or even 2 rows out of position. Now that the image is transferred, you can begin cutting into the masking and peeling it away to reveal the image underneath. So, the idea is that you press only hard enough to go through the masking tape. You don't want to cut into the paper underneath. This requires a bit of finesse. It's going to take some practice to get the right amount of pressure figured out. Once you do, you'll apply that amount of pressure. You will cut only along the lines that you've drawn from your reference, and then you will carefully peel the masking away. Peeling the masking away is very enjoyable, and it's kind of dangerous because if you are enjoying it too much, you may miss cutting a line here or there, and that can result in you peeling away more material than you want to. You need to avoid this. So take your time, cut along all of the lines that you've drawn completely before you begin peeling away any one piece. This is where I am cutting out the rest of the background. The reference image did not have a background, so I've added a background that I feel complements the piece. Your reference most likely won't have a background, so you will have to add your own design to create a background for your piece, thus making it your image and not just a copy of a reference. I'm almost done with cutting out the masking, and this is preparing us for the next step, which is the liquid watercolor action painting. All the areas that have been unmasked will get painted, and all the areas that are still masked will be white.